Well, the time is just coming up to 11 o'clock. This is Manx Radio, broadcasting on 219 metres in the medium wave band, 89 and 96 megahertz VHF from the Isle of Man. It's time now for the family phone-in. And I would have a piece of music behind me if my cartridge had queued up, which it hasn't. But I'll say very good morning to you who've just joined us. The family phone-in topic for this morning, pardon me, is old-fashioned health remedies. We don't want you talking about what you buy at the chemist this morning. Well, we can get the music now. Let's have that. We always feel more comfortable and secure with a theme. We don't want you talking about the over-the-counter chemist prescriptions today. We want you to tell us about the things that your mums and dads and grandmas and granddads did to keep you well. And with me in the studio to talk about them, and indeed to start the programme off, I'm very, very pleased to welcome back again to Manx Radio Miss Mona Douglas, who is an eminent writer. She also collects information on the Isle of Man. She's a musicologist here, and she's back on the show this morning. Good morning to you, Mona.
Good morning.
Well, now, you've done a little bit of research into some of these old cures, and I think I stopped you in your tracks this morning when I said there was a fella who put a cork in his bed to cure cramp. You'd never heard of that one?
No, I haven't. I've heard of putting a nutmeg in your pocket to cure rheumatism.
Yes, that's
which is more or less the same type of thing.
I wonder if anybody knows how on earth these things work, because I can't see any connection between rheumatism and a nutmeg whatsoever, can you?
Well, nutmeg is, as we all know, a spice, and it has certain effluvia, and it might be something to do with that, I don't know.
Right, well now, if you have any idea why a nutmeg in the pocket can cure rheumatism, or a cork in the bed will settle cramp, would you give us a ring, please, on Douglas 24144. But Mona, now from your notes, what researches have you found in the Isle of Man? You've come up with some rather extraordinary things, haven't you, really?
Well, unusual, say, anyway. Now, a great thing in the island in the old days, of course, used to be the fairy doctors. They weren't fairies, of course. They were people who cured by charms, and they were nearly always men. Some of the women folk used to cure by herbal mixtures and that kind of thing, but they were nearly always accompanied by some spoken words as well. And the men seem to have specialised in these spoken charms, also with something touching or something like that with the hand. And a great many of them were very well known, especially for curing animals, but also some of them for curing people. Now, the most famous curing family that I've heard of is the Tears Ballachwain out in the north. And they have had a reputation in the island for many years, and people would travel great distances to take a patient to them. And you've got a woman in Douglas who is a relative of that family.
Yes.
A very important person she was last year. That's Miss May Tear, who was Mayor of Douglas.
Oh, yes.
She claims connection with the Tears of Ballachwain.
Yes. Yes, but these old charms are quite extraordinary. Are they going to pass out? Are people going to forget all these? Is it going to be lost, do you think?
Well, I don't think they'll be lost. A good many of them have been recorded in various books on folklore that are published and available, and also a good many of them are still practiced to some extent.
Has anyone ever charmed anything for you at all?
Yes. I have had a wound charmed by a blood stopper. Of course, they were very well known, and they were nearly always men.
Yeah.
Now, this particular man that I'm thinking about was at one time skipper of the Sarah Blanche. Do you remember the Sarah Blanche, a little cargo steamer that used to... I think she belonged to the packet company at one time, and then she was taken over by somebody else.
I don't remember.
But this man, Tom Crane, he lived in Douglas. I think he was a Peel man, really, but he lived in Douglas. And he worked for the packet company before he got the command of the Sarah Branch. And I've often heard about people coming down to wait for the boat to come in to get Tom to go and stop blood from somebody that was very badly bleeding.
Well, now, tell me what happened when this... were you young at the time, or...?
Oh, yes, I was just a child.
Can you remember exactly what happened? What did he do? Did he just say these words and it stopped bleeding? Or?
Well, it was in my arm. I must have cut an artery or something, because it was a pretty bad bleeding. And he stroked the arm and said something in Manx, and it gradually ceased. And then they put a bandage on and it healed up normally.
But so did belief in what he was doing, it didn't enter into it in your case then?
No, I was just told to give him my arm, and I did, and this is what happened.
Yes.
And I didn't understand the Manx at that time. I expect it was what they usually said, on Sena air as a back as a spirit knew, but I wasn't well enough up in Manx at that time to understand it.
Have you ever tried to do any charms yourself, or do you have to have certain gifts to be a charmer?
Well, for the blood stopping, it was always said that the charm must only be passed on from a man to a woman, or from a woman to a man, and it must be within the same family. I personally have never had one.
No. We have our callers starting. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat this morning. We have our callers starting, and we have on line one, I think it's either Lita or Rita. Hello?
Hello?
Lisa, good morning to you.
My nana goes to bed and she puts a magnet in to cure rheumatism.
A magnet?
Yes.
How long has she been doing that?
She's been doing it for quite a while now, because she fell over and she's had a lot of trouble with her leg a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now she just always uses a magnet, and it really works.
It really works, does it?
Yeah.
Is she with you? Would she like to come and tell us about it, or is she somewhere else?
She's in the other room. I don't know whether she will, though.
Well, perhaps you might persuade her to come and tell us, talk to us about it herself. Just before you go, Mona, have you ever heard of that, putting a magnet in your bed?
No, I never have, but I should think it's in the line with the nutmeg.
Yes. Well, what about you, Lisa? Do you do any strange things, or are you too young for all this?
I don't do anything. It's me nana.
You just go along to the chemist and get your medicine, do you?
Yes.
Right. Well, do you think if you ever get rheumatism, you'll stick a magnet in your bed?
I might.
Thank you very much for calling. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Try and get your nana to call us too, okay? Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
The family phone-in is underway, and with us now is Len. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Talking about these charms, and Mona Douglas was saying that they were dying out, or you were asking to see, did they think they were dying out? Well, I'm only a young fella, but I can manage to charm warts.
Ah, now, right, let's get on to charming warts. You know a bit about this, Mona, do you, charming warts?
Well, yes, it's quite a well-known thing, of course. Nan Wade, I believe, was particularly good at it, but there were lots of other people that could do it too. And curiously enough, some of the English people have come into contact with this, the people that have come over. And I happened to have at my house yesterday, when I was talking about some of these cures, an Englishman who has only been in the island about a year. And he had tried some advertised cures for warts, chemical things, and they hadn't had any effect. And there was a child there who said to him, I know a cure for warts. If you tie a human hair round the wart and say the right words, it'll go. So he let the child try it, and sure enough, the wart went.
Well, is this any part of your charming of warts, tying human hairs round, Len?
No, I use a potato.
A potato? Tell us how you
Yes,
do
I've
it.
heard of that.
Tell us how you do it. Can you tell us?
Well, you're not supposed to.
Oh, you're not. I see. Oh, if it's a medical secret, we don't.
Yes, it's a medical secret, yeah. But also, my father-in-law, he was a blood stopper. He had the charm. He didn't use anything. He didn't even need to go out of the house. He just had to go in the house and tell them that somebody was bleeding bad, or an animal was bleeding bad, and he'd just go off to his room on his own and the bleeding would stop at the same time as he was in the room.
What did he say?
I've no idea.
This was your father-in-law?
My father-in-law.
What was his name, Lenny?
Mr. Kane.
Jack?
Willie, Little London.
Willie Kane.
Mm.
Yeah. Did anybody ever sort of wonder how these gifts came about?
Well, I often do myself, like.
Hmm.
You know, how
You've no explanation for it at all?
No, because I've had people try the same cure as me for warts, like, you know, and it hasn't worked.
Yeah. Do you cure anything else other than warts?
No, just warts.
You're the wart man, right. Are warts still as prevalent today as they used to be in the 30s and 40s?
Oh, I would say so. Man, you while you're on the subject, like, you see, warts and verrucas on the feet are very much the same.
Are they?
Yeah.
Can you charm verrucas?
A verruca inside, it grows in instead of growing out.
Ah, can you charm verrucas out of the feet?
Yeah.
What, the same way as warts?
Same way as warts.
Really? Did you know that, Mona? There's something new, isn't it?
That's something more recent, I think.
Yes.
You never used to hear of perucas in the old days. I think they're a modern disease.
Yeah.
Or trouble, whatever they call them.
Well, they're more spread by, like, the public baths and that sort of thing, isn't
it's
it, where
only
people go
from,
around barefoot.
from the time of having the public baths that they seem to have been
Yeah.
known as, by that name anyway.
Warts have gone from the hands to the feet by the sound of things. Do you get emergency calls out for warts at all, Lenny? No?
Not emergency calls, but
Not often.
The worst case I had was a chap he'd been going to hospital and getting them cut out, like, you know, and they kept coming back on him. And he came to me in desperation, like, and he was covered in warts. I've never seen the like.
Really?
No. And I managed to cure him.
He must be pretty good at it then.
But he was the worst case that I have done. Like, you know, I've done quite a number.
How long do the warts take to disappear after you say your charm?
Various times, like, but usually within 2 months they're gone.
Yeah? 2 months.
And the thing is, there's no mark left where they've been.
Do you find cases where they sort of come back to these people, or are they gone forever?
Not yet. I haven't found any that's come
Very
back
good.
yet.
Well, you've got a 100% success rate by the sound of things.
So far.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for calling us. Most interesting that, Lenny, thank you.
Right, thanks very much.
Bye-bye. We move on now. We have Liz on line 3 waiting for us, I hope. Hello, are you there, Liz?
Hello?
Good morning.
Yes, I'm afraid I haven't got anything to add because mine was the same as the caller, the little girl on line 1. My mother used to sleep with a magnet in her bed, a small magnet. And she never had rheumatism.
Right, now...
That's an old Lancashire cure.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it wasn't Manx.
No.
My producer says... my producer says he's glad she didn't have her corsets on at the same time.
It was only a very tiny magnet. I've still got it.
Bit of a tangle there.
Some woman in Lancashire told her about it, and she had it in her bed for about 20 years. I mean, you know, took it out when she made the bed kind of thing, but she never had rheumatism.
Because people have worn copper bands around their arms since Roman times, haven't they, really?
Yes. Yeah, there must be something in it.
There's got to be an
That's metal
explanation.
again.
Yes.
But I don't know the origin of it at all.
And you say she did this all her life, then?
Well, as far as I can remember, I mean, I can remember sort of from when I was grown up and started bed making, you know, with her, that she had this. I said, what on earth is this in your bed, you know? You know, it's a magnet. Mrs. So-and-so told me about it.
Did she take a magnet on holiday with her as well?
No. Now I thought about it, no, she didn't. But she very often went abroad, and if we went to a warm place, it probably wasn't necessary.
No. But obviously she was a rheumatism sufferer. Did this totally alleviate the problem, or was it just part cure, or what?
Well...
Or was it a protection against having rheumatism?
I think what originated it was when I was a teenager, and she got a very bad attack of sciatica, which kind of struck her as if she'd been shot in the leg, you know, and it was really bad. And it was the only thing she ever suffered from. And after that, when she got over that and got it cured, that is when she started. This woman had told this, some old woman, about this cure, which was good for anything like rheumatism or sciatica. And admittedly, she never had anything again.
Do you suffer from rheumatism yourself?
A bit.
Are you going to get one of these magnets?
No, I never thought about it.
I
might do now.
What about you, Mona? Do you have a bit of rheumatism now and again?
Well, I must say I'm very lucky so far. I haven't had much.
I think we all suffer from it a bit.
Manx rheumatism.
No, let's not go into that. Thank you very much indeed.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. What's happened? I switched my mic off and I disappeared for a minute. They're telling me that Peggy's on the line, and she ain't. Oh, wait a minute, I think she is, actually. I may have got my lines a little bit mixed up. Let's just see if Peggy's there. Are you there, Peggy?
Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. We had a bit of a hoo-ha on the phone box here. We're all right now. You're with us, okay?
Yes. Well, I just wanted to say, when I was young, I had warts on my hands and a very bad one on my knee, which I used to tear every time I used to, clean a floor or catch it in anything. But it wouldn't tear right off, but almost. And I was told to rub a slug on it and put it in a matchbox and bury it and not tell anybody where I'd done it, or what I did do.
Yeah.
And they all disappeared.
Mono, any comments on rubbing a slug on your knee?
No, I haven't heard that one.
Well, it worked for me.
Yeah, I've heard that somewhere. There's also something about sticking a thorn through a slug for something as well that I remember from my childhood. It's all coming back to me now. So, did it take a bit of courage to go and pick this slug up?
It did, because I hate them.
Would you do that, Mona, if you had a wart on your knee?
Oh, yes, doesn't worry me to pick a slug up. And what you're talking about, sticking the pin through them, it was also used by some of the old country people. It was supposed that the pin would eventually kill the slug, and as the slug died, so would the wart.
I see. You didn't stick a pin through your slug, then?
No, indeed. No, I just buried it in the matchbox. Same thing, I suppose.
Yes. It wasn't going to get out, was it? And have you ever been troubled with warts?
I've never seen another wart in my life since. No, it was a marvellous cure.
So you're a friend to the slugs anyway?
Well, yeah, as far as regards to that. Otherwise, I'd put slug pellets out.
You don't? What, after them doing that for you? Dear, oh dear. Anyway, thanks, Peggy, for calling us.
Right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Family Phone-In. We're talking about the home cures. And with me in the studio is Mona Douglas. We move on now to our next caller, who's Linda. Hello, good morning.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I used to suffer with styes a lot when I was a little girl, and my mother used to have a wedding ring and make a little sign on my eye, and it used to go.
With her wedding ring?
Yes, with her wedding ring, make a little sign on her eye, on my eye, and it would go.
What sort of sign? How do you mean?
Well, I don't know, it just used to rub it and her own little special sign, and it would go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, has anybody else heard of that?
Has anybody else?
Oh, yes,
yes,
I've
Mona?
heard about that too.
Yeah, yeah.
Where do you think that might originate, Mona? Any idea of that? Has it got sort of religious significance?
I don't know. Do you know whether anything was said while she was rubbing the eye with the ring?
No, not at all. She just used to make a little sign of her own. I used to say to her, what are you doing, Mum? She'd, oh, just my own. It was passed down from her mother, you see.
Oh, yes, I expect the sign would be the sign of the cross.
Well,
yes.
I suppose it was, yes.
Yes.
But they used to go, you know?
Yes, oh yes, I think these things did work. Just why, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. She was a great believer in the old folklore. Yes.
Did this sort of style disappear very quickly then? Or?
Oh, well, it'd be the next day, it'd be gone,
Yeah,
you know.
It's the same as the old warts.
Yes.
That's right, yes.
And another thing that they used to do for that, they used to pluck a leaf of the mare dunyamaro, that's the wild sage, and rub that round the eye while saying the words.
I see, yes. Thanks anyway.
Again, it's a charm that's involved, really, is it?
Yes, it's both. It's the charm and the rubbing, I think.
Did your mother say any words over this or not?
No, not at all. She just used to make a little sign with her wedding ring, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for letting us know about it today.
Okay, then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You have a theory, I think, Mona, that behind a lot of this, the sort of superstitious angle of this, is a sort of religious background anyway.
Well, I think the whole business of what we now call superstition is a survival or a relic of the early religions, which have altered and some people would say deteriorated over the centuries. They were, first of all, I suppose, the pagan religions, the Druids and their predecessors, and then it was taken on into Christianity. And, of course, you've got to remember that both the priests of the older religions and the Christian monks made a speciality of treating people. They were the first doctors, and they used to grow herbs for medicinal purposes. And, of course, that tradition has gone on. It's probably been filtered out among the people. People would find out what they use for certain things and use them themselves.
Yes. And of course, there must have been dangers in experimentation in the early days as well. We might move on to that. In fact, if anyone has had any problems with using herbs and find that they didn't quite do what they expected to do, give us a ring on 24144. We've got 3 free lines at the moment, incidentally. On the 4th, we have Mary. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I've just been listening to your programme, and I've got a fantastic book here, Country Remedies, it's called. And that last caller that mentioned about styes, in this book it's got this, and it just says it's an infallible cure is to rub the stye 3 times with a gold wedding ring, or failing that, use the tail of a black cat.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
And also, it's got about rheumatism, and it says that at all times carry a potato in the pocket, and this will successfully keep rheumatism at bay. Ladies in former times had special pockets sewn into their dresses in which to carry a raw potato just for this purpose. It can cure baldness, anything in this book,
Well, yes.
Pimples, anything.
Yeah. There are a lot of books about... What is this one called, you're telling us?
It's called Country Remedies by Karen Thiessen.
Well, I have 2 in front of me. One is Country Wisdom by Gail Duff, which has a similar sort of thing, tells us all kinds of cures. And a lady loaned me one called Natural Remedies for Common Ailments, written by Linda Clark.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are many of these books around at the present time.
This has got spells in it, and if somebody makes a spell against you, how to get rid of it.
But I don't know that... I think we'd have to bring Mona in on this. The fact that all these things are recorded in books doesn't necessarily mean that anyone can do them, does it, Mona?
Oh, I don't think so.
Well, that varies. Some are possible to be done by anybody who knows the formula, and others seem to be confined to certain people. Now, you were talking about the warts, and that reminds me that something much more serious than a wart was sometimes cured, or said to be cured, and that is cancer.
Really?
They used to cure cancers by the application of hemlock plus a spoken charm, and they could pull the cancerous growth out by the root. And this process was so painful, the actual pulling out, that the patient, even if he was a man, sometimes fainted while it was being done. But they say that it was infallible. Now, only a very few people in the island were able to do this. One of them was Ewan Christian of Lake, and there was another man in Andres whose name I forget. But this has been recorded by folklore collectors, and it's been recorded
so
too, that the patients had no return. So
there's no doubt it's quite authentic then?
Yes, of course it goes back when Ewan Christian was the beginning of the last century. I think the other man lived and worked pretty well up until the end of the last century.
Yeah.
But quite a lot of people know about it in the north.
Any reference to cancer in your book, Mary?
No, I've been through it all, and I must admit I haven't seen anything about that.
Yeah.
But it's got all sorts,
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for ringing us this morning.
Right.
Okay, bye-bye now. Bye. We must take a break now for some information, and we have a breather in the studio. We are waiting on 3 callers at the moment. If you'll hold on, please, for a couple of minutes. That's Jock, Beryl, and Audrey. Okay.
If you're thinking of adding to your kitchen, or even planning an entirely new one, the friendly people at Face are ready to help. Their beautiful new studio showrooms exhibit every type of kitchen imaginable, from the ordinary to the most exclusive. And they now stock their new self-assembly range, available in units of very high quality at prices you'll find most agreeable. See the entire range now at the beautiful Face showrooms in Balfane Estate, Ballasalla. Remember, for kitchens, think Face.
The Ring of Fire.
And now the spectacular Ray Norman combo, every Wednesday, Friday and Saturday night. Music and dancing for all ages from the beautiful Entertainments Lounge, open nightly in the Hotel Continental, Queen's Prom in Douglas.
Tom Jones,
Crystal Gale,
Frank Sinatra, James Last,
ABBA,
Carpenter, Neil Diamond,
Roger Whittaker,
and these will be your newfound friends on 219 from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. every night of the week.
Manx Radio is getting into late night listening with the greatest artist in the world.
Beginning Monday, May 4th, we'll be on air until 1 a.m. every night with the kind of programming you've asked to hear.
Presenters David Callister, Mike Percival and John Moss will keep you informed and entertained through the month of May. Then other voices will join the ranks of late show presenters.
The Late Show begins Monday, May 4th.
10 p.m. to 1 a.m. every night of the week.
On your station in the Isle of Man, Manx Radio.
How often do you get soaked and chilled opening your drive gates when arriving home on a cold, wet night? Why struggle when Swift Engineering can install a cattle grid in your driveway? The complete job done for very little more than the price of gates. So why get cold and wet? Put in a Swift grid system. It requires minimal maintenance and no effort when arriving home. Phone Selby 7620. That's 7620 for details. Farmer's note, Swift Engineering, great for grids.
If you're in the market for furniture but don't have the ready cash, B&B have marvellous terms to help, like this 6-month agreement with absolutely no interest charge, or their 12-month terms at only 5%. B&B also have 2 and 3 year terms, which combined with their already ridiculously low prices make B&B the people to see. Open all day Saturday and from 10 till 2 on Sunday for viewing only. It's so easy at B&B, the furniture people off Circular Road, Douglas, or Snugborough Estate, Union Mills.
You're in tune with Manx Radio, listening to the family phone-in, and we're talking about the old-fashioned cures this morning. With me is Mona Douglas, and someone's been on the phone to say the first spit of the morning will cure a wart. What about that one, Mona?
Oh, yes, that's a well-known thing. It's sometimes combined with other things, but it is put into a lot of cures.
Okay. Well, we now take our next caller on the programme, who's Jock. Hello, good morning.
Morning. It was about warts.
Yeah.
When I was a young fella, I was sent up to the doctor by my mother, and it was a locum that was stood in for the local doctor, and she said to get a potato, cut it into 7 pieces, and put it into a bag, and have another bag stood by, And what you used to do was rub the wart with the warts that were all over my fingers, under my nails and everywhere. And what I used to do was rub the potato on the warts, put it into the empty bag, and at the end of the week, you'd have the empty bag would be full, and go and bury it.
Is this what the doctor told you in the surgery?
Yeah, this is what the locum told us, but not to tell the doctor,
Now that's
I
a bit.
don't wonder he didn't want to tell the doctor.
Have you ever come across that kind of unorthodox medical practice?
No, I never have. I've never found the actual doctors. I don't know whether old Dr. Clegg that collected so much folklore might have winked at it, but I don't think most doctors wouldn't.
Anyway, you went home and did this, presumably. Did it work for you?
Well, I went and I had to bury the full bag,
Yeah.
And about a week later, my mother says to me, is your warts gone? And I looked and there wasn't a wart to be seen. But they were halfway in my fingernails. My fingers were virtually covered with the things,
Yeah.
And they went. I never had them back again.
And what happened to the potatoes? Did they grow a few more from the stuff you buried or not?
Well, I can't remember that. That was way back, that.
Oh, I think a lot of these cures did work. They wouldn't have been kept so long if they hadn't.
One line only free at the moment, and we move on to our next caller, who is Beryl. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Beryl.
Good morning. I want to talk about bread poultices. I don't know if your listeners have heard about bread poultices, but when we were young, we used to, anyone who had a boil or a pimple used to have a bread poultice slapped on it.
Oh, yes, that was quite a common thing, but I wouldn't exactly call that an ordinary folk medicine thing. There was no magic about it. It just had, I suppose, the same effect as any other kind of poultice would have.
Yes, and we used to use soap and sugar, too.
Soap and sugar, what did you do with that?
That used to be put on for a poultice, for a septic finger or something.
Yeah.
And that was a marvellous thing with carbolic soap and sugar.
Ah, carbolic soap, yes.
Yes.
That would disinfect it, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, there's just one funny thing. My young brother was about 2 and he had a septic finger. And we put a bread poultice on and put him to bed. And when he got up in the morning, he'd eaten the poultice.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And did it cure the abscess?
Eventually, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Bye-bye.
Certainly it would have saved him having his breakfast, I dare say. He wouldn't want any porridge that day. What's Audrey got to say? Hello, good morning, Audrey.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that my grandmother always used to use egg white for very bad baby's nappy rash.
Egg white. What did she do?
yes.
Oh, just rubbed it on the bottom.
Separated the yolk from the egg and rubbed the white into nappy rash.
Yes, that would be very effective because the white of egg is very smooth and soothing and it would prevent rashes.
And also about the potato, my grandfather always used to carry one in his Coke pocket wrapped in another one to the rheumatism. He said it took all the impurities out of the body which went into the potato.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard that about onions, and I've also heard that in the bad smallpox epidemic that they had in Douglas in the last century, one house in the middle of a bad district was not affected, and afterwards they wondered why, and they found that in the house was stored a box of onions which had gone completely black. And it was reckoned that the onions had absorbed the smallpox germs and protected the people in the house.
And also for a bad back, my grandmother always used to iron my grandfather with brown paper.
Iron him?
Yeah, he used to
Yes, I've heard of that too. It used to be for sciatica or lumbago, didn't it?
What did she lay him on the ironing board? And
That's right. Put the brown paper on him and then iron.
Oh dear. Well, that's extraordinary. How long ago is that? Is that it has been done in recent times?
Into the 30s and the 20s.
In the 20s. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's no one ironing anybody in your family at the moment, then.
No.
Because I can imagine that as a nice item for Luke North, you know. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's extraordinary. Have you ever seen anyone being ironed?
Yes, my father.
You haven't. What?
Yes, Mother used to make him lie down in the rug in front of the fire and turn his shirt up and get a hot iron and put brown paper underneath it so he wouldn't get burnt and iron the place where the lumbago was.
Good heavens.
Just back and forward with the iron. Don't suppose she pressed very hard.
I hope it wasn't too hot. Right, let's see what we have now from Gwen. Hello, good morning, Gwen.
Good morning. I'm speaking about styes. When I was a child, I suffered dreadfully with styes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was working in Clucas's the fruiter's. And Harold Quayle said to me one day, I arrived at work with 2 terrible stars on my eyes. And he says, now, Gwen, he says, go down the lane there. He says, pick the first living green thing. And when you pick it, bring it back to me, but don't speak to me. So I brought this. I went down the back of the Villiers trying to find a green thing, and I found a blade of grass. I brought it back to him. I handed it to him, and he waved it. He rubbed it onto my eye, and he said something in Manx. Now, what it was, I have no idea. And from that day to this, I have never had a sty. So I think whatever it was, it died with Harold, whatever the charm was.
Yes, unless he passed it on to his wife or
Yes.
to some other member of the family. He had a sister that was in the business, didn't he?
That's
He
right,
knew a
yes.
lot about the old cures. I knew Harold very well.
Oh, he was marvellous.
Yes.
Yes. So I thought.
So he may have passed it on. I don't know.
I hope so, because it was a wonderful cure. I could hardly see out of my eyes that morning, and I'd one on each eye,
Yeah.
and I've never had one since.
Well, that's an additional method for styes I've had this morning. Thank you very much
Yes,
for that one.
thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
If you happen to have just tuned in, you're listening to the Family Phone-In, and we're talking about old-fashioned cures, and we're moving on now to line 1, which is Gertrude.
Yes. When I first came to the island in 1948, I bought some books called Cardle's Farm. And in Cardle's Farm, there was a narrative about a Mrs. Gill who had a cottage at Coronary Bridge. And she recommended, first of all, fern water as an excellent medicine for kidneys. And she mentioned red valerian, a tonic for the nerves, and all sorts of things. A fascinating woman, a fascinating chapter in the book.
Yes, I
suppose
knew Mrs. Gill.
You remember it?
Yes, I knew her very well when I was a child.
Yes. Fascinating.
Yes,
I thought
she
she'd
was
be
very
interested.
clever.
Yes. Goldenrod, she says. Goldenrod, a wound weed, they call it. And if it was sold at 2 and 6 a bottle, people would be buying it because it's in the fields, nobody bothers.
What is goldenrod, please?
It is a perennial that grows in many herbaceous borders, yellow feathery flowers. Do you not know it?
Oh, yes, I know.
I'm sure Miss Douglas does, yes.
Oh, yes.
Anyway,
And
there you
I
are.
notice you give the Manx name of it, the Woolly Wee.
Well,
yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Right, now, I wonder why I've kept Charmaine waiting. There's a cue for her. Hello.
Hello? I had terrible warts on my hand when I was a child, and my mother read in a church magazine about wiping the white stuff that comes out of the stem of a dandelion, wiped that all over it, all over the warts, and they disappeared. Just using that.
That's another one that I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, it worked. I've never had a wart since.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people talking about warts this morning. Have you got any other areas of strange cures?
No, I haven't. That was just one that my mother did for me when I was a child, and she had that in an old, it's going back quite a few years, in a church magazine on the mainland, and she tried it on my hand and it worked. We just kept picking the dandelions and putting the white stuff all over the warts, and they disappeared. And they've never come back. They all appeared round a scar that I had on my hand.
Yeah.
After the scar healed, and just disappeared with the dandelions, and had no recurrence at all. I've never heard anybody else talking about it.
No. Well, it's rather extraordinary, but we seem to find that all these people who've had this wart business, either charm or whatever, they've never come back.
No.
Okay, thank you very much for telling us the story. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, let's see if we have another story from Phyllis. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Morning.
Good morning to you. Would you not think, Miss Douglas, that a lot of these cures, like putting magnets in, are psychological? That people, if they do this, believe it'll happen, and, the body being a healer in itself, will automatically do it?
Well, I think there is that element in it, yes, but I think especially in regard to the herbal cures and preventatives and that, there is also something in the actual material used which does the job, or helps to do the job.
Definitely, because there's a certain moss that the Indians used for wounds and on...
Sphagnum.
Pardon?
Sphagnum moss.
Well, I'm not sure if it's sphagnum, but when they had an analysis of it recently, it contains natural penicillin.
Yes.
And it was a healer which centuries ago we knew nothing about. Also the periwinkle. That is another...
say we knew nothing about it because it's always been used by the country people.
The periwinkle?
Yes, and the sphagnum moss.
No, the periwinkle is being used in a drug now for cancer.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, if the old Manx people used the periwinkle, they were probably using a drug which was effective in its own rights.
Yes, I don't think we'd dispute that, in fact, that all whatever these things were that were used obviously contained the medical contents that were required in some form or other. They've come to us refined in little bottles of white pills now. And
I don't know about that, but the moss was sort of used for all putting on open wounds, and they found it. They healed without contamination, and they didn't know why, but they just used it, and they were on the right track, obviously.
Okay, well, thanks very much for calling us now. We move on. Thank you. In fact, we move on to a caller from Northern Ireland, who's John. Good morning,
Hello.
John. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm just sitting here listening to your program. My mother had a cure for erysipelas.
Say again.
Erysipelas.
My mother had a cure for erysipelas. She cured hundreds of people. They come from miles around. And she done it with a knife. But what she said, I don't know. Unfortunately, she died suddenly and wasn't able to leave it to any of us.
I'm sorry, I didn't pick up the disease, or at least I don't understand what it is.
It's erysipelas, or the rose. It was known here as the rose.
Yes.
Or erysipelas. And she cured, lots of people with a knife.
Yeah.
But she died suddenly and couldn't leave the
She never,
cure to any of us.
passed it on.
Also, my wife was very bad with the jaundice. And she had a cure from a lady, about 20 miles away, by eating a cream cracker.
What? Come on. No, we don't want any plugs for biscuits here now, John.
Pardon?
We don't want any free plugs for biscuits. Come on, what is it?
No, well, that was the bread man came early in the morning, and they asked me where she was when she wasn't out with him, and I told them she was in bed very bad with the jaundice.
Yeah.
That night coming back, he called in and gave her the cream cracker, and after she had eaten it, the jaundice went away.
What was on the cream cracker?
Just butter.
And what did he say when he gave it to her?
Well, he didn't say anything. He just brought it from another lady.
Oh, that's Very extraordinary thing.
That is most strange. So I assume from that the jaundice would have gone anyway, and the cream cracker was purely coincidental.
No, I don't think it, because another lady was in hospital with jaundice, and the bread man brought the cream cracker to us. We gave it to the lady's husband. They took it to the hospital to her, and it cured her, and the doctors couldn't understand.
Really?
I bet they couldn't.
I don't think we can either. This is really interesting. So have you ever taken this up with anybody, in the medical profession at all?
No.
No. So a cream cracker for jaundice, then?
Yes.
Just spread with any old
Just spread
thing?
with butter, but this lady was able to charm it. Like, it was a charm, actually.
Ah, she must have said something with
Well,
it.
she could have said something when she was giving it to the
Yes.
bread server.
Yes.
But it really happened. It did cure the wife from the minute she ate it.
Yeah.
She never had, the jaundice seemed just to go away. She got gradually better every day.
Ah. Whereabouts are you calling us from, John?
Newton Ards, Northern Ireland.
Newton Ards, yeah. What's it? Is the sun shining over there?
No, well, it's coming out now, but it has been raining all morning.
Ah, well, you've got the same as us then. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Okay,
Cheerio,
bye-bye.
mate. Cheerio.
We don't too many people to have sunshine when we're in the rain, do we? Thanks very much to John in Ireland there. Moving to Laurie now. I think is it Laurie, Charles? Is it? Yes, he's nodding.
Yeah.
Hello, Laurie.
Hello.
Go on.
I'm talking about penicillin. In the past, the Welsh people used to rub wounds with mouldy cheese, which used to cure the septic, of course.
Yes, well, of course, that's obvious, isn't it?
That
It's the
one's
same
obvious.
thing.
But can you tell me how a drawer out for boils and abscesses, glycerine on a cabbage leaf? Have you heard that one?
No, not glycerine on a cabbage leaf.
Glycerine on a cabbage leaf and bound over the boil, or the abscess will dry it out.
What I have heard a lot about is poultice made of hemlock leaves and bound over the abscess.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be very effective.
Yeah, but-
I haven't heard of the cabbage, but cabbage was used for quite a lot of things, including stomach troubles.
Yeah.
White cabbage especially. If you boiled white cabbage and ate it by itself without any other food and did that for a couple of days, it's supposed to be able to cure any stomach trouble.
Oh, because cabbage is very good for you, we know that. So I can understand that, if it's taken internally, but I don't understand how it works from the outside.
Well, any poultice will draw an abscess, of course, and there must be some special ingredient or property in the hemlock or whatever that cabbage perhaps that helps to do the job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they used to use cobwebs for binding wounds to stop the bleeding.
Yes,
Binding them with cobwebs.
Yes, well, they're supposed to be very astringent. I should think they are too.
Right, thank you very much for calling.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just a word on hemlock. It's a thing you wouldn't dare take, Mona, isn't it? I mean, it's deadly poison, isn't it? If you took it, if you drank it or ate it.
Yes.
It's only applied.
Yes, but it may have drawing properties.
Yeah. Well, now
Another thing was comfrey. They used to use comfrey leaves.
Yes. Now that is supposed to have repaired aches and pains and bruises and what have
It's
you.
very healing.
I'd like to know if anyone still uses comfrey, if they'd ring us in the next quarter of an hour. Now, we have Dorothy and Anne and Brenda waiting. I'll ask you, if you will, to hang on for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, because we'll be with you. We also had a caller who said that the cure for hemorrhoids or piles is to coat them with varnish or to use hot treacle. Now, we have no information to substantiate this one way or another, but if anyone would like to comment on that, the number is Douglas 24144.
Go continental each Wednesday night at the Crow's Nest. This week's menu is Spanish, next week Italian, and parties of up to 30 can be seated at one table. Why not make a date for lunch? 4 courses are offered daily, Monday to Saturday, $3.50 plus service charge. Ring 5009.
Fit window frames with a view to eliminating constant maintenance and costly repairs. Astrasil PVC windows are ideal for the weather conditions they must resist in the British climate. Made from virtually indestructible PVC, Astrasil never need painting, and the double glazing is a big 12mm barrier against heat loss. Astrasil windows eliminate drafts and reduce fuel bills. Fit Astrasil windows, the PVC windows you can fit and forget. Phone 812034 for prompt attention.
Time marches on, and on the way we experience births, christenings, weddings and anniversaries. The ideal gift to mark each of these delightful occasions can be found at Ridgway's. Whether it's a tiny silver spoon or one of the world-famous Rolex Oyster wristwatches, there's no better way to measure the march of time than with a lasting gift from the island's leading jewellers, Ridgway's of Strand Street, the watchmakers with time for your present.
219 Isle of Man. Good morning.
You're listening to the Family Phone-In. We're talking about the old-fashioned cures. With me is Mona Douglas in the studio, and on our next line is Dorothy. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I had the fire taken out of a burn by charm. I stuck the back of my hand when I was serving it, not looking what I was doing, dropped my hand into a rice pudding, which was just out of an oven, and it stuck all in between my fingers. And the charm was put on this and taken, the fire was all taken out of it, and I didn't suffer any pain with it.
Who did that for you?
Well, the lady has died about 4 years ago. She was a very old Manx lady. Well, she wasn't old then, but she was in her 80s when she died.
Yeah.
She was one of the Quine family, which was well known in Douglas, and her daughter is still, I think she can still do the charms.
How bad would that burn have been if she hadn't been around, do you think?
Well, it would have been pretty bad because it was all in between the fingers, so it would have all blistered and that, but I had no pain at all with it.
Did she do anything? Did she stroke the hand?
No, she wasn't in contact with me. We just phoned her because she was...
It must have been just a charm then.
No, she actually just went into a room on her own.
Yes.
She could also stop bleeding, which again I had seen her do. She did it on her own arm when she fell.
Not many women could do that.
It was a man's prerogative to stop
Generally.
bleeding, was it?
Yes, well, it passed on mother to son.
Yes,
and
I know.
Then
Man to
passed
woman,
back to
woman
his
to man.
sister. But before she died, I believe she passed it on to her brother.
Yes.
And he passed it back to the daughter because
Yes,
she
that
didn't have
would be
any
the way.
sons. But it had to pass on male to female.
Yes, it has to.
Anyway, I bet you were mighty glad she was around at the time, eh?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, thanks very much, Dorothy.
Right,
Bye.
thank you.
Right, our next caller is coming up on line 4. Shall we have line 4? Yes, it's Anne on line 4. Hello, Anne, good morning.
Hello. I'm sorry I haven't got anything as exotic as hot treacle and varnish for piles. But mine is back to warts again, and I haven't heard anyone mention the buying of warts. And this is something I seem to be able to do. I have done once or twice before.
Buying?
I had a school friend, and she had them all over her hand, you know, and I don't know where I heard this from. And I said to her, well, I'll buy them for a penny. And they went. And the trouble was, for weeks and weeks, I was waiting for, for me to get them. And then years later, when my husband was in the army, we travelled all over the world. And now I can understand psychologically that these things work, and herbs work, and so on. But whenever we said we were from the Isle of Man, everyone said, oh yes, that's where they have the fairy bridge, and laughed like anything. And one of my husband's cooks was his hands were covered in warts. And he had even been to specialists and hospitals and so forth. And I did the same with him. I said, well, I'll buy them for a halfpenny, I think it was then.
Has the price gone up with inflation?
No, they were a halfpenny then. They're the old halfpenny. And they absolutely disappeared. And when he went back to the hospital for his next checkup, they couldn't believe it. Yeah. And, I mean, he was so... he'd never heard such rubbish in his life. I mean, that I would give him a halfpenny for these warts. And he just said, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Have you heard of this, Mona? Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of buying warts or any other kind of disease, but what it does remind me of is the old Welsh belief in the sin eater, that anyone who had lived a very bad life, there was a man who would take the sins on himself, and he had to be fed a certain kind of meal. I think it was porridge or something like that. And he was supposed to eat the sin with the meal, and of course he was paid for his trouble.
I see.
Yeah, now I've read a story about that, and it's revolting because that meal was supposed to be eaten from the dead body. I mean, the body was sort of laid out.
And the meal put on top
What?
of
And the meal put on top of the body.
Oh,
and,
no, you're
and-
not eating the body. then?
No, putting the meal on the body, and you would eat the meal. The family would pay you. Oh, God, that's really...
Yes.
But
I think it's rather revolting, but it is of the same type of thing.
Oh, Lord, I wouldn't like to think...
Oh, no, well, it's nothing like a series.
No, but it seems to work. It's most peculiar, and especially from someone who wasn't Manx and thought it was an absolute load of rubbish, you know, and it did work. It worked within 2 weeks. Every one of them went.
Right. Well, look, it's interesting. We'd like to talk to you for a long time. We've got a lot of callers waiting, so thank you very much, Anne, okay?
Bye.
Bye-bye. Right, let me move on now to Brenda on line 2. Hello.
Good morning. It's Bernadette.
Oh, it's Bernadette.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, it's a much more glorious name than Brenda anyway. Good morning to you.
Good morning. My brother and I had jaundice when we were very young, and we got an old cure. We went to 2 old gentlemen, and they had, it seemed to be a mixture of grasses and some sort of herbs, and we had to rub it on. Very itchy, but it did cure it.
What was that for?
Jaundice.
Jaundice.
Yeah.
Any comment, Mona?
No, I don't think why jaundice should be cured by anything external. I think there must have been some internal treatment as well, either mental or physical.
It was just this cure.
Yeah. What did the old gentleman say when he gave you the thing to rub on, or rubbed it on?
He didn't say anything. He just rubbed it on, arms and legs, and that was it. It cured it.
I expect he said something to himself, and it was the charm that really sent it away.
I presume it was. And another, my brother had ringworm, and got a cure. This old gentleman made up a cure of, it was very greasy and brown.
Yes, well, that I do know about. That would have comfrey in it. And that was quite well known as a cure.
Right, well, thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And talking about comfrey, that leads us to our next call, because I did ask for somebody a little bit earlier on if they tell us if comfrey's still in use. I think we may have an answer now on that from Susan. Hello.
Hello?
Good morning.
If I use comfrey, I've used it for eczema on my legs. I've had eczema for about 3 years on my legs.
Who put you on to using comfrey?
I read about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read about it. In fact, I read about it in 3 books in 1 week, and I bumped into somebody who had some, and that convinced me, and the next week I made some.
Tell us the procedure and what you did and how you prepared it and so on.
I bought dried comfrey for the first batch at the chemist in at the health shop in Port Erin.
Yeah.
It's only about 28 pence for a £1/4.
Yeah.
And I heated that with a giant-sized cheap container of Vaseline. And I kept it for about 4 or 5 days by the fire in a metal tin until the Vaseline had turned dark green. Then I strained it. And I used the Vaseline, which is now green, as an ointment. And it's certainly worked as well as any of the doctor's ointments.
Yes, it's very good, I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know an ex-nurse living near Ramsey who makes comfrey ointment in that way and sells it, and it's supposed to be very effective.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with it. It's the first time I've made it and used it. I'm using fresh comfrey now to make it. And I use the
fresh from the fields, do you mean?
Well, yes, actually, it grows along by the railway line, which will be a bit sooty, but it's the nearest place I found it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's better with fresh leaves.
Yeah, I bandaged them round. I've got a 4-year-old, and every time she falls over and breaks her knees, I bandage a comfrey leaf on.
Yes, it's very healing.
It seems to do, heals up very quick for her, but I mean, children do anyway. Yeah, I've enjoyed using comfrey. It certainly makes a change from pills and ointments.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
nice.
It saves the country a lot of money.
I'm sure it does. It's nice to see that these traditions are being carried on. We're looking, we thought rather this morning, at something that was dying out, but certainly you, Susan, are carrying it on.
Oh, yes, I think a lot of people will.
Yes, I think I agree with you. I know a lot of people that still believe in these things and find them effective.
Yes, they work.
Okay,
Comfrey
thank you.
was also used for toothache.
Was
an
it?
abscess on the tooth to draw it out, a poultice of comfrey.
On the cheek.
But they always had a drastic cure for that too, because if the poultice didn't work, they went to the local blacksmith and he pulled the tooth out without an anaesthetic.
Oh, that's great, isn't it? We're laughing about it. I don't think we'd have enjoyed it happening to us. Okay, thanks, Susan.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yes, the blacksmith as dentist. Well, now, we haven't had any greetings in Mangsbury this morning so far, Mona, but I'm sure we'll get one now from Bernard Kane. Bernard.
Hello, David. Good morning. A couple of points from what you've been talking about warts now. The current sort of medical folklore about warts seems to be this, that they are essentially a sort of surface thing. And they're caused by a virus, and the virus doesn't actually get into the bloodstream of the body, and so the body's antibody producing system isn't stimulated. And the theory is that when you sort of disturb a wart in some way by rubbing it or whatever, eventually some of the virus will get into the body system, which will then start producing antibodies against the virus, and so you effectively cure the wart yourself. Now, this, as I say, is the medical folklore about it, but I've come across two instances of sort of folk cures which my children have used and have got rid of rather nasty warts on the hands. My eldest son got rid of his by applying holy water. I don't know whether he said any prayers or charms while he was doing it, but he applied holy water from a church to them and got rid of them that way. My other son got rid of his, I think, a combination of two methods. I had an Italian lady lodging with me, and her sort of folk cure was to wash the hands in water with a small amount of washing soda in it, and the stuff people used to use when doing their washing, sodium carbonate. And he did this for a few days, but then one day we went into a shop in Ramsey where there was a lady, a Mrs. Corkle, who said she could blow warts away to the moon. And she took his hands and blew on the warts and said she was blowing them away to the moon. And about a week later, they'd all gone. So you can take your pick as to which method of those two, whether it was the Italian or the Manx or a combination of the two that got rid of them. Going to another point about how these things sometimes die out. As you say, they were passed on sometimes from a man to a woman and so on, but they were usually only passed on the deathbed. And there's a story I heard of a man who had apparently a number of charms, and after he died, his wife was asked why she didn't get the charm from him. And she said, well, we would have asked him, but we didn't want him to think we thought he was dying.
Thank you very much indeed.
Another point, if I may just...
well, very quickly, because I have three callers waiting, Bernie, with 3 minutes left. Okay.
I have a doctor friend who worked in Northern Ireland, and he told me once of a case of a man who had an obstructed gut. And when he was operated on, he was found to have several reeds, long reeds, all tangled up inside him. And apparently a local sort of fairy doctor had told him to go at night and pick a reed from a marsh and eat the thing whole as a cure for some ailment or other. And he'd done this on several occasions and finished up with an obstruction in his gut.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be a bit cautious about some of these things.
Okay, thanks very much,
Okay,
Bernie.
David.
Okay,
Cheers
bye-bye.
now.
Bye. Right, now then, very quickly, Mona, just before I take our final three callers, a lady has been on the telephone to our receptionist who says, have you ever heard about going up to Laxey Wheel to cure whooping cough?
No, I
No, you haven't. That's the answer to that. Now we have Graham. He's been waiting a long time. He's still there, Graham, yes?
Yes,
Good man.
Yeah. Going back to these warts again. I'm only a young fellow now, but when I was about 9 or 10, I used to be living down in Castletown, and my hands were absolutely covered in warts, you know. And my grandfather tried to get rid of them by rubbing them with the head of a match. He was licking them, then rubbing the head of the match on them. And that didn't work, and he used to go to the doctor and used to, you know, try and cut them away. And the nurse tries to cut them, but you know, they just kept growing back. So eventually, in sheer desperation, went to see this lady, and she lived at the Crofts. Now, I think the lady is dead now, but I went there, and I had one of the old pennies with me, and I gave her a penny, and she said a few words, and I went, and by the next this is the next morning, they were gone.
Oh yes, I've heard about that lady, I think.
I don't know. I can't remember her name, but she was very. You know, it was a genuine thing.
Yes.
Thank you, Graham. We have to move on. Sorry to rush you off now. And our final caller this morning will be Joan. Hello, Joan.
Good morning.
I'll have to ask you to be very, very brief indeed.
Yes. Has Mona heard about the people that's suffering with boils going to farms in the district? This is going back about 20 years or so, 30 years probably, going to the local farm, waiting for a cow to flop onto where the boil was, and then binding it up.
Flop? Can you explain flop?
Cow dog.
Absolutely, yes. And it completely cured. I saw some very bad boils on one gentleman. Came at milking time, stood there with them. They were on his shoulder and his top of his arm, and stood under the cow when they saw it was going to happen. And they were completely cured and no disfigurement for 3 days.
Well, that's a nice note on which to finish, just at lunchtime. Thank you very much indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All the lines are still going at the moment, but I'm sorry we can't take any more callers. Mona, thank you very much for coming in this morning. Hope you've enjoyed
It's
it.
been quite enjoyable,
Hasn't it?
I've enjoyed listening to people. I'm quite sure these things are not going to die out for a very long time.
Mona Douglas, our guest on the phone in this morning, thank you indeed. Thanks to producer Charles Webster. Thanks mostly to you for all the calls you've given us in the past hour and the enormous amount of entertainment. Thank you. And from me, David Callister, it's bye-bye for now. Stay tuned for Louise Quirk and Family Requests.
Makes radio Isle of Man.